improved seeds, and I'm glad to have you on the program on ARCN Television Abuja. I am Hilda Hobson Fantua, and today I have a crop breeder and an agronomist. She is Andrea Dama. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, we're going to discuss Irish potato propagation. This is something that a lot of farmers want to go into it, but because of the challenges, most especially the right soil, the fertilizer, and above all the potato blights that are affecting most of the crops and making the crop or the food so expensive and so important. I know you want to know what you should do to see that we have bumper harvest and of course help put Irish potato on our table. We'll go on a short break. Improve seats on ARCN Television. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Before we went on a short break, I told you that we're going to talk about Irish potato propagation, the do's and don'ts in cultivating or propagating Irish potato. And to do justice to this is my guest, a young lady in the house. She is a crop breeder and an agronomist. She is Andrea Dama. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
How is everything with you?
Thank God, fine.
How is Irish potato?
Potatoes are getting ready to be on the field.
All right, that's good. All right, so today we're going to talk about Irish potato propagation. Okay, so for a farmer now, how does he identify an adequate or a good seed, that is Irish potato seed, for cultivation?
Thank you. So when you talk of potato seed, it's actually a big word that encompasses so many planting materials or propagules as we call them. We can use the stem cuttings, we can use the whole tubers to plant, we can use what we call the true potato seeds that grow in the berries. Potatoes produce fruits. So inside those fruits there are berries, and then we can also use them to propagate potato. So the very common one that farmers use, because it has a high multiplication ratio, when you plant one tuber, you're likely to get up to 17 more during harvest, is the whole tuber. So for you to identify a good tuber in this sense, you need to understand that there are nodes on the tuber. You should have at least up to 3 nodes on the tuber. The nodes are like eyes on the potato tuber. So you should have like 3. So this is when your planting season is not fast approaching. Like now, when you go to get those seeds, you can look out for that. Then immediately the rain starts, and when it's just maybe 2 weeks to planting, the season is almost here and you need to plant, and it begins to germinate early. You need to get a seed tuber that has started sprouting. A seed tuber that has sprouted must have been kept for up to 3 months for it to break dormancy. So it must have started sprouting. Those eyes must have started bringing out something, like a plant, before you plant. So that things that you look out for, you're going for full tuber production.
So now we have, you said, the berries.
Yes.
That is the flower. When Irish is growing, that is the flower. Or what are the berries?
It looks like, potato and tomato belong to the same family.
Okay.
So when it flowers, it brings out some things like berries. Look like tomatoes, just tiny, not as big as tomatoes, they're very tiny. So those are the true potato berries. So inside it, there are seeds, just like the tomato seeds. We call them true potato seeds.
True potato seeds.
So you don't for that one, it's what plant breeders commonly use. So you don't just take it to the farm and plant it and you expect it goes through a process. So first of all, there has to be a nursery. It takes like 6 weeks before you transplant them to the field.
Okay, so now we can use the berries and the seeds in it, but basically for breeders. So farmers that want to even go through that can go through the process of having it on the nursery beds first before the seedlings, before transplanting. Exactly. All right, so we said berries, we have the tubers, and you talked about the
stem cuttings.
The stem cutting.
Yeah, these are basically propagules we use in the formal potato seed system. You know what is obtainable now? We're getting there, but we are still in an informal potato seed system. You know, seed system is an enterprise on its own.
Okay.
So what is obtainable here is, you know, because farmers save their seeds and from harvest, so they are able to get what they use for the next planting season. That is informal. But in the formal seed system, seeds go through a process of cleaning. You hear in some tuber crops like yams, when you hear of aeroponics and hydroponics and tissue culture. So it's a process of cleaning for the plants to be able to eliminate viruses and fungi that cause disease. So in the formal seed system, we use things like the stem cuttings or vines in propagating potato seeds. But we're getting there in the potato seeds.
Okay, it's not started.
Yeah, we're on the way.
All right, so this is interesting. And then you talked about farmers, you know, reserving their crops, yes, crops, right?
Yeah.
For next. Is that okay? How good or how adequate is that?
That is not okay, and that is why I said it's an informal way of seed propagation. Okay. You know, the idea of a seed system is an enterprise, is a sector on its own. So the idea is after every 3-5 years, a farmer should be able to walk up to a seed company or a seed store and obtain improved varieties, obtain the right seeds for the right varieties. So whenever you harvest your seeds or your crops and you're able to save some and keeping for the next planting season, obviously, you know, you're reducing what you're supposed to get. If you're a marketer, you're reducing what you're supposed to get, your income. You're reducing what you're supposed to eat at home. You're also taking whatever disease or infection that season must have given your tubers, you're also carrying it to the next planting season. But in a formal seed system or in seed companies, you know, they're able to eliminate this by 80%. So the advice is every year, every 3-5 years, you should be able to walk up to a seed company and obtain your seeds rather than saving seeds for the next harvest, which circulates disease infections and reduces yields on the long run.
That is interesting. All right, so this is we're going to talk about the blights, of course, but between now the rain-fed season and the dry season, which of the seasons do you think farmers should, you know, operate upon to have better yields? Because every farmer, either the commercial or the local, the end product is mostly the reason why we go to the farm. So which of the seasons do you think is preferable?
So for all crops, not just potato, I think the irrigated farming or dry season farming pays more. Just that it has higher cost of production. Because you know, there are two things. Let me deviate a little.
Yes.
There are two things that actually help farmers get better yield.
Okay.
And these are the genotype of the seed or the organism and the environment. Now the genotype consists of what you cannot change. It is what that seed is. If the seed is meant to produce 20 tons per hectare, it is what it's going to produce. Then if it is 5 tons, it is what's going to produce. But then the environment is the only thing you can manipulate. By environment now, it consists of temperature, the soil health, the soil pH, moisture and the likes. So the environment is the only thing we can manipulate. Okay. It's also the same thing like human beings. You know? What I see in you is as a result of your genotype and your environment. The environment manipulates who you really are. So the environment, now when we talk of rain-fed and dry season farming, the environment is what we talk about. Okay. So in dry season farming or irrigation, you're able to manipulate. Okay. When it's rain-fed, it is what comes naturally, and with climate change and the rest, you cannot really control it. But with irrigation, you know the amount of rainfall you're going to, amount of water you're going to apply. You know how to reduce or increase the fertilizer level just in case there is going to be an erosion, a flood on your field and the likes. So irrigation for all crops, not just potato, it pays more, but there is high cost of production in there. But you know, rainfall, you just want to plant and do 1 or 2 things, or you're not able to control the rainfall and temperature.
Let's go back to the blights, the tomatoes blight. What are some of the causes of tomatoes blight? And then you talked about the irrigation system, which is more preferable for farmers to use because you can control that. Does that also apply in controlling the potato blight?
Yeah, so potato blight is caused by a fungi.
Okay.
We call it Phytophthora infestans.
Okay.
So it's called late blight actually.
Okay.
So, and it's a fungi, like I said. So for every fungi, there are conditions that aid them to multiply.
Okay.
And for this, it is moisture.
When
when the environment is humid, is cold enough, fungi multiply as fast as they can. So during the rain-fed farming, you discover that late blight almost totally finishes field, because the moment the rains are constant at the peak of the rainfall, they multiply and they spread faster. But when it's irrigation, like I said, you're able to control what's, even if there is an incident, which is very rare, you're able to control it, and the multiplication is rather very limited. So for you to control late blights, you need to, first of all, we talked about using the right seeds of the right variety. You need to try to obtain late blight resistant varieties, and one of it is, I think, is Juria, that is very common now on the plateau. So Juria and Unica, they're very common, and you can use them. Even if the blight comes, you're able to get a reasonable yield, because one thing with blight, if you're not using a resistant variety, it can cause up to 80% reduction in your yield. So when you get a resistant variety, you're able to control it up to a 50%. So you're able to get reasonable yield. So humid conditions and high moisture are what multiply fungi, the late blight, faster than any other thing.
All right. So now, if you plant during the dry season, it helps reduce it.
Yeah.
Alright, this is still Improved States on your first agricultural television, the capital city of Abuja. I am with a crop breeder and agronomist. She is talking and enlightening us on the right steps in cultivating or propagating Irish potato. And of course, she talks about the blight, and she also highlighted the best season. She feels it's better to use the dry season irrigation system of farming, whereby you're able to control everything surrounding the farm, unlike the natural one, that is the rain fed, where we don't get control of most of the things that come along with the rainy season. The discussion continues after this short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the environmental things, or the things necessary for every farmer to look out. That is the pH, the water, the fertilizer, the spacing, and other things surrounding Irish potato propagation. Don't go anywhere. I'm Hilda Hobson, and I'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. This is still April Seed, so your first agricultural television, the capital city of Abuja, and I've been talking with a crop breeder and agronomist, Andrea Dama. She has highlighted the different types of seeds that farmers need to look out for when cultivating Irish potato. You can either go through the berries, that's the flower, the seeds are in the berries, or go through the whole tuber, of course the stem or the vine tubers. Farmers use the whole tuber. Now, in the whole tuber that we're going to talk about, that farmers mostly use in cultivating Irish potato, what are some of the environmental lookouts that a farmer should look out for? That is when we talked about the pH, the soil, the pests, the fertilizer. What should they look out for? And the spacing, of course. when cultivated to give them better yielding, and of course to also eradicate, the blights that affects most of the crops.
So, earlier I talked about dormancy. So for you to have high yield or better yield when using whole tuber, you need to ensure that that whole tuber must have broken dormancy, and it takes a period of 12 weeks or 3 months before that happens. So, and it's also best when you want to break dormancy, you don't keep them. Most of the times the best storage method for potato is in a cold room. Yeah. But when you want to break dormancy, you don't keep it in a cold environment, because it has been proven to not break dormancy on time. In fact, it won't even break dormancy if kept in a cold environment compared to a warmer environment. So you need to store them in a warm environment for you to break dormancy. Also, you need to look out for those 3 eyes. I said you have up to 3 eyes for you to know that it's a good seed. Does it have symptoms of rot on it? Because one of the major things that affect potato even in storage is rots. Because our storage system for now, we don't have cold rooms to keep them. So most of the times you keep them on the floor, which encourages, once there is a rot, a bacterial it begins to spread. So you also need to look out for tubers that are very healthy, don't have signs of rot in them. Okay. Because once they have signs of rot in them, what farmers do is, another method is, you can cut the tubers. But we don't encourage that in the formal seed system, because it's more labor. Sitting down cutting, we don't encourage cutting. It produces. It produces. Right. So you can also, if your tubers are rot, you can also cut some of them. Then you need to know what amount of rainfall is needed in this season. What is the temperature? What is the soil pH? And like I always encourage farmers, when a season is approaching like this, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency releases a seasonal climate prediction every year. I think it came out 2 weeks ago. For Nigeria in general. It contains rainfall patterns, everything about each state. When is the rainfall going to start? When is it likely to end? What is the amount of rainfall expected in these areas? For potato now, for the plateau areas, the Mambila Plateau in Taraba, what is the rainfall pattern for this year? So these are things that farmers should get a hold of. The documents out there, they should be aware, so you're able to plan. If NIMET says the rainfall is going to commence in the 3rd week of June, what are your plans? Are your seeds ready as a farmer to commence in the 3rd week of June? Because for you to escape late blight, you need to plant early. Early planting is very important. Even if you have a resistant variety, you need to plant early. So these are some of the things you should look out for when cultivating or planting whole tubers. Then you need to know that document also contains the right temperature for potato. You can't grow it everywhere because of the temperature requirements. So for you to form tubers, it needs a temperature of 18 degrees or less. Soil temperature of 18 degrees or less. So it can even, if you can plant it anywhere, it can grow. It can likely even produce flowers for you, but those tubers will not form if it's not up to 18 degrees. So that the things farmers need to know before going into potato.
So 18 degrees what you need?
Yeah, soil temperature 18 degrees for it to form tubers.
Okay. So what is the centimeters that farmers should take when planting?
Okay, for planting whole tubers, in between the plants, they are planted on ridges, by the way. You don't plant potato on the flat land, because it's tubers and it needs space to grow, and it's covered in soil. So they're planted on ridges between the plants 30 centimeters. Like a ruler long. This come on.
You don't have ruler, can you use your hand or your leg?
Maybe my hand as long as this.
Okay.
Yeah, for my arm. Then if it's between, they're on ridges, between the ridges you have 75 centimeters.
30 and 75.
30 and 75. Normally that's between the ridges is done during plowing and harrowing. The tractor does that for you. But during planting, you need to take note of 30 centimeters in between the plants.
Alright. So the fertilizer application, and how do you apply it, when do you apply it, and what is best use?
Yeah, for fertilizer you need NPK 15-15-15 or sometimes 20-10-10, but what we often use is the 15-15-15. So you need 100 kg, like a bag of nitrogen. You need 40 kg of potassium. Then you need that of phosphorus of 30 kg. So for a hectare.
Okay.
So that is what you need. And how it is applied, normally it is by side dressing. Side dressing is, they are in a straight line on the ridge. So you just go by the side, just 10 inches, a little, not on the plant itself, just a little away, and then you begin to apply it on the side. That's how you apply the side dressing. And then you do that at 6 weeks after planting. That's a little after a month. A month is 4 weeks. So 6 weeks after planting, you apply fertilizer, and immediately you apply fertilizer, there is a practice we call earthing up or healing in potato, because as the rainfall or so many factors are coming, that soil is being washed away. So you try to cover up what has been lost, and that's what we call earthing up. So immediately after fertilizer application, you do that. So you also do that not to make sure the fertilizer doesn't escape into the air. The plant uses very well. That's why you cover it again.
You apply it once or twice or thrice?
You apply it once.
Once, it's okay.
Once.
Okay. And then what are some of the pests and diseases farmers look out for?
We've talked about late blight, which is
obvious,
common. So we also have bacterial wilts.
Okay.
It's less common. It's also factored or conducive when the rains are high. But then we also have viral diseases that affect potato. Then we also have the rots, which affects it in storage. Yeah. So these are some of them.
How do you identify when potato is affected with blight?
Yeah, blight comes, you see it looks like the leaves, it's on the leaves basically. And the leaves look like they are water soaked. They begin to form like lesions. Like something burns the leaf, just a part, it starts very small and then begins to spread on the whole leaf. Then on the stem, it forms like yellow. As the rains increase, yellow turns to brown, brown turns to black. And then you just look at the plant. When it's totally finished, it looks like something burns that plant.
And it collects the whole farm.
Exactly. It's very fast. Like I said, fungi, they spread very fast. As long as the conditions are favorable.
Alright. So how many weeks does it take for a potato, averagely to harvest?
12 weeks. That's 3 months. 12 weeks, 90 days, 75, 90 days. You have early maturing varieties, 75 days, and you're done. If you have late maturing, 90 days, and you're done.
And you're done with that.
Yeah, done with that.
So now, since it's 3 months at most, or thereabout, is it okay for us to cultivate it in bags, in buckets? Most especially for farmers that are in the urban areas where we don't have enough lands. So can they cultivate it through bags? And
yeah, it's very much advised. When the land is limited, you don't have enough land, we encourage everybody, there's what we call home gardening now. Everybody grow your food, you don't need to wait for the markets to, you can cultivate them in bags in your house, you can cultivate them in pots in your house. Can do that.
And that reduces some of the diseases
that has to do with the field propagation. Exactly.
Alright, so what's the best way of you talked about for the seedlings, it's better we keep them in a warm so that we'll have the breaking doma. Then for for a large harvest, where do you keep it? How do you keep it? How do you protect it or preserve it so that it will not get rotten?
Yeah, potato, like I said earlier, you need a cold room to store potato. But in the absence of a cold room, you can keep them in a room that is or in room temperature, and sometimes you can just spray sand and just keep the potato there. It keeps them warm till the next.
Even for the commercial.
Even for commercial, you can keep them for as long as you want. But you always have to make sure that you're checking in to remove rotten tubers that might not be good for marketing.
Why is it that potato gets rotten? If one is rotten, the others all get rotten? Can you tell farmers that?
It has to do with the genetic makeup of potato. It's very tender. I think it has to do with most tuber crops are like that because of their tender nature, and because they are used to you're used to being covered up in the soil, and then suddenly you're brought out to adapt to an environment that it's not really yours to grow. So it is expected that as soon as you take them off, you consume, or you do immediately. But keeping them for that long period of time, sometimes even for over 4 months they are being kept. So it is not their kind of environment. They are used to being enclosed in the soil, and then
Alright, so what advice do you have to tell farmers? Talk to them and let them know, encourage them, and your last words to farmers?
Yeah, I'd like to say again, know the right seeds, get the right seeds of the right variety, and know your environment as a farmer, as a potato farmer. The fact that a variety, Nicola, did well last year doesn't necessarily mean that this year is going to do well. That your neighbor planted Marabelle or whatever variety and it did well doesn't mean you should rush to get Marabelle to plant this year. Understand your environment, understand the kind of seed for the variety, because each seed is specific for a purpose. Some seeds are bred or kept to are meant to fight late blight, to resist late blight, but they are not meant to resist bacterial wilt, or they are not meant to resist viral disease, or they are not meant to have high yield. So you can have a seed that is resistant to late blight and it might not automatically translate to high yield. You can have a seed that is high yielding but does not automatically translate to blight resistant. So it's important to know what kind of seed, what kind of variety, and what kind of environment you have.
Oh. So if my neighbor's farm is affected, how do I protect mine?
Just immediately, the thing is, it's very difficult, but you can just try to immediately spray fungicide as fast as possible. Yeah, to control it. And also make sure that you don't use a potato field that has been used by that has been cultivated for tomato, for pepper. I told you earlier that from the same family. So when you cultivate that, you know, those fungi have a breeding place for the next one. They hide and wait. When you come, they are there waiting for you.
So you should watch out for that.
Watch out for that when you, especially when you're starting potato cultivation for the first time. What kind of crop precedes what you're going to cultivate?
Thank you so much for finding time to be here and to enlighten us on this. Get your right seeds. Do not cultivate where you've cultivated some crops, most especially tomato, onions, which are of the same flowers and almost have the same diseases and pests. And of course, get the right seeds. Get an informant. Go and inform. Get yourself informed to know the right plant, most especially in cultivation of Irish potato, and do yourself well to avoid all these that farmers are crying about. Potato blight is a problem and it can be eradicated when we use the adequate and the right seeds. Thank you so much for finding time to be here.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you also for staying with us and watching our programs. Keep updated with us for another episode of the program Improve Seeds on ARCN Television, Abuja, Nigeria. I am your girl Hilda Hobson. I'm saying let's contribute to food security and go out there and do yourself well by cultivating something to reduce all these stress that we're going through. See you next time, and from all of us is take good care of yourself.